Very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. It seems that some journalists like buses. You wait for one and then two come along.
I mean, listen, well, it's all happening, isn't it? I mean, you've got a breaking story this morning. I mean, about let's go after paedophiles. I mean, I was saying that presumably somebody's sitting around in Downing Street going, "Who does everybody hate?" And they go, "Paedophiles." Right, let's go after them. That'll work. And so, great story this morning. But will they actually do it? That's the big question. I had Bob Seeley in with me this morning doing the paper review, and he said, how many members of the Pakistani rape gangs do you think are going to get castrated by this government?
Yeah, well, totally. And I think you start from the position that it is obviously a popular policy. Castrating sex offenders has been something that's been talked about for a long time now by successive governments.
Yeah.
No one seems to have actually, to put it crudely, have the cojones to do it.
Yeah.
The Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, says that she is going to consider it, but, and it is a big but, like you said, will it actually happen in the future? And I think this government is clearly trying to recalibrate after a very, very bad start to their time in office, had a thumping by reform at the polls, and now is trying to throw out some red meat, trying to get people back on board. But there is a problem, as you said, with the authenticity test. And a lot of the things that they are saying, they sound great, and they're the sort of thing you can imagine Nigel Farage saying, but do they truly believe it?
Yeah.
And then do they have the wherewithal to actually see it through?
Yeah, well, indeed. As I said to Martina, your colleague just before, which Keir Starmer are we talking to today? Is it the, hard on immigration and paedophiles Keir Starmer, or is it the let's go soft and join the European Union again, even though we voted to leave it 9 years ago? You don't know which one you're dealing with.
No, totally. And it was the same with the immigration white paper. From a man that once said all immigration laws are racist to talking about an island of strangers,
right.
It does seem that Keir Starmer sheds his political skin when it is politically convenient. Now, obviously, something like castrating pedos seems to be going down very well with the public from the reaction that I've seen this morning. And I think polls in the past have shown that, the public is pretty hard line when it comes to this, understandably so. But obviously, people will be questioning whether or not, one, they will follow through with it and see if they truly believe it.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, today as well, on top of all of this, and the details have come out in the past few hours of this sentencing review by David Gauke. So we have great headlines about pedos being castrated, but at the same time, recommendations from the former Tory, pretty wet Tory Justice Secretary to the government are recommending the mass softening of other sentences. And you're going to get prisoners released after potentially a third of their sentence, not just people on short sentences, but also people serving for pretty horrible crimes, domestic abuse, sexual offences. And so on the one hand, they're talking a tough game, but if they follow some of these reviews some of these recommendations by David Gauke, then they're going to be going in the other direction.
Right. And some of the other recommendations are, I understand it anyway, that if you get recalled to prison, you'll only have to be recalled for 28 days before you get let out again. So it's very much a softening of the judicial system. And so it's schizophrenic. And a lot of, certainly, you might say that people like the policy, but once you read into it and you see what the actual detail is, it's a little bit sparse. It's not that clear how they would do it. It's not that clear who would be affected by it. It's not that clear how it would be administered outside of prison, how it would be administered inside of prison, obviously we know. But would it be administered, on a monthly basis outside of prison, on a 6-monthly basis? It's hard to see.
Yeah, it is in the very early stages at the moment. I mean, what they were doing is government sources pointing at various US states where getting a chemical castration will be a condition to be released from prison, i.e. you wouldn't be allowed to be released back into the community having served your sentence unless you had these drugs. But it is still in the very advanced stages at the moment. And, often we hear about government policies being thought about in Downing Street, and then actually, they don't come to pass, or, the news cycle moves on. Hopefully, this is one of the policies where actually they carry through with it, because I think that's where the public is. And by God, at the moment, they need some support from the public because voters are turning their backs on them.
Yeah, exactly right. And many of them are still not being convinced by any of this. Just a final word on the old Chagos situation. 10:30, apparently, there's a hearing. We're told that it's a private resident of Chagos Islands that's brought the injunction, which was granted apparently late last night. Pretty embarrassing for this government, again, isn't it, to be sort of pulled up by the courts that they so love to refer to when they feel like it, but now they're sort of hoist with their own petard.
Yeah, totally. And I think that, they're taking their medicine for what has been a pretty disgraceful handling of this whole saga. The details have been so lacking. They haven't listened to any criticism.
Yeah.
They're not telling us how much money they've got. that they're giving to Mauritius. They're not listening to any concerns about being allies of China.
Yeah.
They've hardly come to Parliament to answer questions about the money. And so if it's taken them to be dragged kicking and screaming to the court, then I think fair enough. And obviously for the Chagosians, it seems to be the last thing on their mind at the moment. And I believe it's a former resident, isn't it, who's brought this case. Then they're gonna have to suck it up. I think that it's actually been pretty bad how they've handled this entire saga. And so if it now comes to the crunch from the court and they can't do the deal, then I think many people will probably be cheering.
Yeah, absolutely right. Jack, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Jack Elsom, Chief Political Correspondent there at The Sun. Labour policy all over the place.